Commander Sarah Reeves stared out the viewport of the Earthship horizon at the gleaming citadel of Galactic Central. The massive space station hung like a jewel against the backdrop of stars, home to the Galactic Alliance, an organization of 27 advanced alien civilizations that controlled most of the Milky Way. Today was supposed to be humanity's big day. After 50 years of waiting and preparing, Earth had finally been granted an audience to petition for membership in the Alliance. "Commander," her communication officer called. "They're ready for us." Sarah nodded, straightening her formal blue uniform. "Remember everyone, we represent all of humanity today. Let's make a good impression." The human delegation of 12 entered the grand chamber of the Alliance, with heads held high. The room was enormous, with a circular floor and rising tiers of seats filled with representatives from across the galaxy. Some looked almost human, while others were utterly alien, crystalline beings that floated in the air, gaseous entities contained in special suits, and creatures with multiple limbs and eyes. At the center of the chamber stood Supreme Counselor Thex, a tall, willowy alien with silver skin and eyes that shifted colors like an oil slick. As the leader of the Alliance, his opinion would carry the most weight. "Humans of Earth." Thex's voice resonated through the chamber. "You stand before the Galactic Alliance to petition for membership. You have met our basic criteria for technology advancement and unified planetary government. However, membership requires a majority vote from current members. Each civilization will now review your case." What followed was 6 hours of questioning about Earth's history, government, technology, and culture. Sarah and her team answered everything honestly, as they had been instructed. They spoke of humanity's achievements, but also acknowledged their past wars, environmental challenges, and ongoing social issues. When the questioning ended, Supreme Counselor Thex called for the vote. One by one, the members cast their decisions. To Sarah's growing dismay, most votes came back negative. When the final tally was announced, only 3 out of 27 civilizations had voted to accept humanity. "The petition for Earth's membership is denied," Thex announced, his voice flat and emotionless. "On what grounds?" Sarah asked, unable to hide her shock. "We've met all the technical requirements." Thex's eyes shifted to a deep purple, a color Sarah would later learn indicated distaste. "The Alliance has determined the humans are too unpredictable, too aggressive, and too divided in their thinking to join galactic society at this time," he explained. "Your species regularly engages in conflict. Your history is filled with wars over resources, ideology, and territory. Even now, while presenting a unified front, your planet contains factions that disagree with each other." "That's part of being human," Sarah argued. "We debate, we disagree, but we also compromise and grow." An octopus-like alien with bioluminescent skin spoke next, her translator converting her clicks and flashes into English. "You misunderstand, Commander. These are not qualities the Alliance values. Consensus, stability, and predictability are the foundations of galactic civilization. Humanity's tendency toward conflict and rapid change is precisely why you have been rejected." "Furthermore," Thex added, "our predictive models suggest a 78% probability that humanity would disrupt Alliance harmony within 1 standard decade if admitted. The vote stands. Earth is denied membership, and under Alliance law, cannot petition again for 20 standard years." Sarah stood stunned as Thex continued with the final judgment. "The Alliance has also determined that humanity's expansion must be contained for the safety of galactic society. Earth and its current colonies may continue to exist independently, but you are forbidden from expanding beyond your current star system. Alliance monitoring stations will be established at the boundaries of your territory to ensure compliance." "You're quarantining us?" Sarah asked, anger rising in her voice. "We are protecting galactic stability," Thex corrected. "This decision is final. You are dismissed, Commander." The human delegation was escorted from the chamber, the massive doors closing behind them with a resounding thud that seemed to echo humanity's fate. On the shuttle ride back to the horizon, Sarah's second-in-command, Dr. Marcus Chun, finally broke the shocked silence. "What do we tell Earth?" Sarah looked at the faces of her team, scientists, diplomats, and military officers, who had trained years for this mission, all now wearing expressions of disbelief and disappointment. "We tell them the truth," she said. "The Alliance has rejected us not because we failed, but because of who we are. And then we decide what comes next. They've essentially imprisoned us in our own solar system," Marcus pointed out. "What options do we have?" Sarah turned to look back at the gleaming galactic central station growing smaller through the viewport. "If they don't want us as members," she said quietly, "then we'll have to find another way to secure humanity's future among the stars." News of the Alliance's rejection and containment policy hit Earth like a meteor. After the initial shock came anger, then determination. If humanity couldn't join the galactic community through invitation, they would have to forge their own path. 10 years passed. While officially complying with the Alliance restrictions, Earth's governments secretly poured resources into developing technologies that could evade Alliance detection. Teams of scientists worked around the clock to understand and improve upon the glimpses of alien technology they'd observed during their brief contact. Sarah Reeves, now Admiral of Earth's Defense Force, stood on the bridge of the Defiance, a new type of ship equipped with experimental stealth technology designed to slip past Alliance monitoring stations. She had aged in the decades since the rejection, silver streaks running through her once dark hair, lines of determination etched around her eyes. "Status report," she ordered as the ship approached the boundary of Alliance-monitored space. "Stealth systems functioning at 98%, Admiral," reported her tactical officer. "If our calculations are correct, the Alliance sensors won't detect us." Sarah nodded. "Proceed with Operation Breakout. Steady as she goes." The Defiance slipped past the Alliance monitoring station without triggering any alarms. Once clear, Sarah allowed herself a small smile. "Send a signal to Earth. Phase 1 successful. The cage door is open." Over the next 5 years, Earth executed a carefully orchestrated plan. Using the stealth technology pioneered on the Defiance, dozens of colony ships slipped past Alliance borders to establish hidden outposts in unclaimed star systems. These colonies were small and designed to leave minimal detectable footprints on their host planets. To further protect these new settlements, Earth scientists developed a network of specialized drones that could detect approaching Alliance ships and warn the colonies to temporarily shut down all technology until the threat passed. By the 15th year after rejection, humanity had established 23 hidden colonies spread across a region of space far larger than their original allocation. Each colony focused on different aspects of technology development, free from the watchful eyes of the Alliance. But their freedom wouldn't last forever. In the 17th year, a routine Alliance patrol stumbled upon one of the larger human colonies when a massive solar flare temporarily disabled the early warning system. The colony couldn't power down in time, and its energy signature was detected. Within days, Alliance ships surrounded the colony on New Terra. Supreme Counselor Thex himself arrived to confront the human governor. "This is a direct violation of the Containment Directive," Thex declared, his eyes shifting between angry red and disappointed blue. "The Alliance will have no choice but to take control of all human settlements and impose direct oversight." Governor Eliza Washington stood her ground. "We did what any living species would do when caged. We found a way out. The Alliance gave us no choice." "You were given the privilege of existing within controlled parameters," Thex countered. "Now you will face the consequences of your defiance." Before Thex could leave to organize a response, urgent news arrived. Alliance sensors had detected not just one human colony, but 7, then 12, then 20. As reports flooded in, the true extent of humanity's expansion became clear. Thex turned to Governor Washington, his color shifting to a shocked yellow. "How is this possible? Our models indicated compliance." Eliza smiled. "Your models don't understand humans very well. You should have learned that by now." Alliance ships moved to secure the discovered colonies, but they faced an unexpected challenge. The colonists refused to surrender, and they were armed with weapons and defenses of their own design, technology that hadn't existed when the Alliance rejected Earth 17 years earlier. As conflict erupted across multiple star systems, Admiral Sarah Reeves coordinated Earth's response from the Defiance, which had been upgraded several times and now served as the flagship of humanity's growing fleet. "The Alliance underestimated us," she told her officers during a strategy session. "They thought containing us would keep us weak. Instead, it focused us. Every colony we built, every technology we developed, all of it happened because they told us we couldn't." "But we're still outnumbered," Marcus Chun, now her vice admiral, pointed out. "The Alliance controls thousands of worlds." "We don't need to defeat them all," Sarah replied. "We just need to demonstrate that containing humanity is more trouble than it's worth." As the conflict between humans and the Alliance intensified, an unexpected discovery changed everything. Dr. Sophia Patel, a xenoarchaeologist working on one of the outlying human colonies, uncovered ruins of an ancient civilization, one that predated the Alliance by thousands of years. The technology and records found in these ruins suggested that this civilization, which called themselves the predecessors, had once governed the entire galaxy. Most importantly, Sophia discovered references to a massive threat that had apparently contributed to the downfall of the predecessors, something they called the Void Eaters, a mysterious force or species that invaded from beyond the galaxy's edge. When this information reached Admiral Reeves, she immediately recognized its significance. If verified, this wasn't just an archaeological curiosity. It was potentially a galaxy-wide threat that the Alliance either didn't know about or had kept hidden. "We need to confirm this," Sarah ordered. "And if it's true, we need to use this information strategically." Research teams were dispatched to search for more predecessor ruins. Over the next 6 months, they found similar sites on 11 different worlds, all containing warnings about the Void Eaters and indications that they operated on a cycle, returning approximately every 50,000 years to harvest the galaxy civilizations. According to the predecessors' calculations, the next return was due within a century. Armed with this information, Admiral Reeves requested a direct meeting with the Alliance leadership, not as a supplicant this time, but as an equal with vital information. Supreme Counselor Thex reluctantly agreed to the meeting on neutral territory, a small space station at the edge of disputed space. When Sarah presented the evidence about the Void Eaters, she expected skepticism. What she received instead was shocked silence. "You found the predecessor records," Thex finally said, his skin turning pale. "How much do you know?" "Enough to understand that there's a threat coming that endangers everyone," Sarah replied. "What I don't understand is why the Alliance isn't preparing for it." Thex's eyes shifted to a color Sarah had never seen before, a deep, troubled gray, because the Alliance was founded specifically to avoid preparing for it. At Sarah's confused expression, Thex explained, "The original members of the Alliance discovered similar records 3,000 years ago. They faced a choice: mobilize the galaxy for war against an uncertain threat that might not return for millennia, or focus on stability and peaceful existence for as long as possible. They chose peace over preparation," Sarah realized. "They chose certainty over chaos," Thex corrected. The projections showed that militarizing the galaxy to face the Void Eaters would lead to internal conflicts, resource wars, and civilization collapse before the threat ever arrived. So instead, the Alliance was formed to maintain harmony and suppress disruptive elements. "Disruptive elements like humanity," Sarah said bitterly. "Yes," Thex admitted. "Your species' natural inclination toward rapid technological development, confronting challenges, and, yes, conflict, makes you precisely the type of civilization the Alliance was designed to contain. Our founders believed that species like yours would destabilize the galaxy in preparation for a threat that might never materialize in our lifetime." Sarah leaned forward. "But what if the threat does materialize? The predecessors' calculations suggest we have decades, not millennia." "Our scientists have seen the same data," Thex acknowledged. "But the Alliance Council has chosen to stay the course. Stability now over an uncertain future." Sarah could hardly believe what she was hearing. "You're condemning the entire galaxy to be unprepared for extinction." "That is not your judgment to make," Thex responded, but his tone lacked conviction. "Maybe not," Sarah agreed, "but neither is it yours to contain humanity when we might be the galaxy's best hope for survival." Following the revelation about the Void Eaters, Admiral Reeves developed a bold new strategy. Rather than continuing direct confrontation with the Alliance, humanity would position itself as the galaxy's defenders, the species willing to prepare for the coming threat that the Alliance refused to acknowledge. Sarah sent envoys to each Alliance world, bypassing the central authority to speak directly to individual civilizations. They brought evidence of the Void Eaters and humanity's plans to develop technologies and defenses against them. Most importantly, they extended an invitation: join humanity's preparation efforts, regardless of what the Alliance decreed. The Alliance was created to preserve stability, Sarah's message stated. But there can be no stability if the galaxy falls to the Void Eaters. Humanity offers not conquest, but partnership and survival. The response was not immediate. Many worlds initially rejected the human overtures out of loyalty to the Alliance. But as humanity's evidence spread and was independently verified, cracks began to form in the Alliance's unified front. The turning point came 3 years later, when long-range sensors detected unusual activity at the edge of the galaxy, precisely where the predecessor records suggested the Void Eaters would first appear. It wasn't a full invasion force, but what appeared to be automated probes, exactly as the ancient warnings had predicted would precede the main arrival. When the Alliance leadership chose to classify this information rather than alert member worlds, several civilizations broke ranks. The Arcadians, a species of brilliant engineers, were the first to formally ally with humanity. They were followed by the Jun, masters of biological sciences, and then the Kalori, whose predictive mathematics were unrivaled in the galaxy. Within 5 years of detecting the first probes, over a third of the Alliance members had formed what became known as the Guardian Compact with humanity. Each brought their unique knowledge and abilities, filling gaps in humanity's preparations. Supreme Counselor Thex and the remaining Alliance loyalists watched with growing alarm as humanity's influence spread. Their attempts to discredit the Void Eater evidence failed as more probes were detected, and their military efforts to contain the human-led coalition were undermined by defections from their own ranks. "You fractured the galaxy," Thex accused during a tense meeting with Admiral Reeves, now 10 years after the revelation. "The harmony we maintained for millennia is destroyed." "The harmony was an illusion," Sarah countered. "It was built on ignorance and fear. We're replacing it with purpose and preparation." By this point, the Guardian Compact controlled nearly half the galaxy. Under human leadership, but with contributions from all member species, they had established massive shipyards, weapons research facilities, and early warning networks. The borders between Compact and Alliance space were heavily militarized, but actual conflict was rare. Both sides focused their resources on their divergent priorities. 25 years after Earth's initial rejection from the Alliance, humanity had transformed from an isolated, contained species to the leaders of the largest cooperative military and scientific endeavor the galaxy had ever seen. Ships bearing the Compact insignia, a stylized shield with Earth at its center, were common sight across thousands of star systems. Sarah Reeves, now in her 70s, but still commanding respect as the strategic director of the Compact, often reflected on the irony. The Alliance had rejected humanity for being too aggressive and unpredictable, yet those very qualities had positioned humans as the galaxy's best hope for survival. "We didn't set out to rule the galaxy," she told her advisors during a strategy meeting. "We simply refused to accept the cage they built for us." "Some would say we've become overlords nonetheless," Marcus Chin observed. Now in his 60s, he served as diplomatic director, managing relations between the many species of the Compact. "Perhaps," Sarah acknowledged, "but we're overlords with a purpose greater than control. We're preparing the galaxy for a fight for its very existence." 30 years after Earth's rejection from the Alliance, the first true Void Eater ships entered the galaxy. Just as the predecessor records had warned, they were massive, city-sized vessels of unknown composition that seemed to absorb energy and matter alike. They struck first at isolated outposts on the galaxy's edge, Alliance territories that had minimal defenses due to the central government's continued policy of downplaying the threat. Entire colonies disappeared overnight, with only automated distress signals left behind. As reports of the attack spread, panic swept through Alliance space. Citizens demanded action, and many worlds turned to the Guardian Compact for protection when the Alliance central government proved slow to respond. Supreme Counselor Thex faced the greatest crisis of his long tenure. The council chamber, once orderly and harmonious, had descended into chaos as representatives from dozens of worlds demanded immediate action against the Void Eater threat. Order! We must maintain order! Thex's voice struggled to rise above the clamor. His skin had paled to an ashen gray, his eyes cycling rapidly through colors of distress and uncertainty. Order won't save our worlds, shouted the representative from Mirren 4, a planet whose outer colonies had already fallen. While we debate, the Void Eaters consume. A holographic display at the center of the chamber showed the advancing Void Eater fleet, a spreading darkness consuming everything in its path. Their vessels defied conventional understanding, appearing sometimes solid, sometimes as swirling vortices of dark energy. The Guardian Compact has offered protection, the Xylosian representative announced. My government has already accepted. We suggest others do the same. Thex's skin rippled with indignation. Abandoning the Alliance for human protection is short-sighted. We have our own defensive measures being mobilized. Measures that should have been implemented decades ago, the Xylosian countered. The humans were right all along. We cannot afford pride now. As the Alliance fractured further, the Guardian Compact's unified response demonstrated exactly why humanity's leadership had become indispensable. Admiral Sarah Reeves, now 75, but showing no signs of relinquishing command, directed the greatest warfleet the galaxy had ever seen from her flagship, the Defiance II. Status of the evacuation of Proxima System? She asked her operations officer, a young human woman who reminded Sarah of herself half a century earlier. Complete, Admiral. All civilians relocated to safe worlds in the Compact Core. Defensive fleet is in position. Sarah nodded, studying the tactical display. The Void Eaters had devoured 7 Alliance systems, but had yet to penetrate compact space. The human-led coalition had spent decades preparing defenses in depth, layered systems of early warning networks, automated drone swarms, and heavily armed battle stations. The Void Eaters will reach the Arcturus defensive line within 24 hours, Marcuschan reported. Though technically retired, he had returned to serve as her special advisor during the crisis. All ships are in position. The first true battle between the Guardian Compact and the Void Eaters took place at Arcturus. The Compact fleet, a mixture of human-designed vessels and ships contributed by 24 allied species, faced the nightmarish Void Eater armada. As the alien vessels approached, they seemed to distort space itself, their true size and number impossible to determine. All ships, execute Battle Plan Prometheus, Sarah ordered. For 30 years, the Compact had been developing specialized weapons designed specifically to combat the Void Eaters based on the predecessor records. Now it was time to see if their preparations would prove sufficient. The battle raged for 3 days. The Void Eaters fought unlike any enemy encountered before. They didn't seem concerned with tactics or self-preservation, only consumption and advance. But the Compact forces, though taking heavy losses, held the line. The turning point came when the Jeanne bioships deployed their phase displacement fields, forcing the Void Eaters into a more corporeal state that made them vulnerable to the Arcadian graviton cannons. As the alien vessels became more solid, the human-designed quantum disruptors tore them apart from within. When the cosmic dust settled, the Guardian Compact had achieved what the predecessors could not. They had stopped the Void Eaters' advance. News of the victory spread rapidly across the galaxy. In Alliance space, already destabilized by the initial attacks and the central government's inadequate response, revolution erupted on dozens of worlds. Citizens toppled governments that had chosen to follow the Alliance doctrine of inaction. One by one, these worlds petitioned to join the Guardian Compact. Supreme Counselor Thex requested an emergency meeting with Admiral Reeves. They met aboard the Defiance II. Thex was accompanied only by a small security detail, a far cry from the pomp that had surrounded him when Sarah had first encountered him 30 years prior. "You've won, Admiral," Thex said quietly as they sat across from each other. The alien looked diminished, his once vibrant skin now a muted silver, his color-shifting eyes settled into a resigned blue. Not just against the Void Eaters, but against everything the Alliance stood for. "This isn't about winning," Sarah replied. "It's about survival." The Alliance had noble goals: peace, stability, harmony. But those goals became dogma. You forgot why they mattered in the first place. And what do humans believe they matter for? "So that life can flourish," Sarah said simply. "Not just exist in carefully controlled patterns, but truly flourish, with all the messy disagreement and unpredictability that entails." Thex's eyes shifted briefly to purple, the color of distaste, before settling back to blue. "Perhaps, but I did not come to debate philosophy. I came to discuss terms." "Terms of surrender," Thex clarified. "The Alliance Council has voted to dissolve the central government. Individual worlds will make their own choices regarding joining your compact." Sarah wasn't surprised, but she felt no triumph either. "And you?" "I will step down, of course. My life's work has proven to be misguided." Sarah leaned forward. "Join us instead." Thex's eyes widened, shifting to a startled yellow. "What?" "The Guardian Compact needs voices advocating for stability and harmony alongside our preparations for war. We need the wisdom the Alliance accumulated over millennia, just not its rigidity." "You would accept me? After everything?" "The very qualities you rejected us for, our ability to adapt, to forgive, to incorporate seemingly contradictory viewpoints, are what make humans effective leaders in crisis. We don't want to erase what came before. We want to build something better." 2 months later, as the war against the Void Eaters continued with the Guardian Compact, pushing the invaders back beyond the galaxy's edge, Sarah stood on the observation deck of Earth's orbital headquarters. Below her, the blue planet spun serenely, the homeworld of a species that had gone from galactic outcasts to leaders in a single generation. Marcus joined her, moving more slowly now, but still sharp as ever. "The last Alliance world joined the Compact today," he informed her. "The galaxy is unified for the first time since the predecessors." "Under human leadership," Sarah added, still finding the concept somewhat surreal. "Because we were too unpredictable and aggressive to join their club." Marcus smiled. "History is full of ironies, but you know what the greatest one is." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "The Alliance rejected us because they feared we would cause chaos and conflict. Instead, we created the most effective unified defense the galaxy has ever known, precisely because we embraced conflict rather than feared it." Sarah nodded, watching as a compact vessel, its hull bearing the insignia of Earth, surrounded by the symbols of 30 allied species, prepared to depart for the front lines. "We became overlords not through conquest," she reflected, "but because we offered something the galaxy needed more than stability." "And what was that?" Marcus asked. "Hope," Sarah replied simply. "Hope that comes from facing challenges head-on, rather than hiding from them. In the end, that made all the difference."